Hello, I'm Eileen McHugh with the BBC News. France's President Emmanuel Macron has suffered a major political setback after his party failed to win an absolute majority in the country's parliamentary elections, according to projections published after polls closed. However, Mr Macron's party will still be the biggest in the National Assembly, but a newly formed left-wing coalition led by Mr Macron's opponent in April's presidential election, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, has become the main opposition. The far-right party of Marine Le Pen has also seen historic gains, as Lucy Williamson in Paris explains.
Tonight's result is a huge shock for President Macron. His Prime Minister said it posed a risk to France and that the government would have to draw the consequences. I think what we're seeing here is the new shape of politics under President Macron, with the opposition, the main opposition on both left and right, now made up of parties that want to see radical change in France's relations with other countries and its constitution.
With more than 60% of the votes counted in Colombia's presidential election, a former left-wing rebel, Gustavo Petro, has taken a narrow lead. Early results show Mr Petro leading by a tiny margin. He was the front-runner in the first round of the election. Casting his ballot in Bogotá, Mr Petro warned about the risk of fraud to prevent him from becoming the country's first left-wing leader.
Today, we must overcome any attempt at fraud with a massive vote.
The outgoing president, Ivan Duque, said Colombians should show their confidence in the country's institutions. Police in Brazil say they're looking for 5 more people believed to be involved in the murder of an indigenous expert and a British journalist in the Amazon 2 weeks ago. Bruno Pereira and Dom Phillips were killed in the remote Javari Valley, where they were investigating the involvement of criminal gangs in illegal fishing, mining, logging in indigenous lands. 3 people have already been detained. The 5 new suspects haven't been formally identified. Brazilian media report that they are suspected of helping to dispose of the victims' bodies. Reports from Ethiopia say that an outbreak of ethnic violence has left many people dead. Eyewitnesses in Gimbi district in the Oromia region say the rebel Oromo Liberation Army attacked remote Amhara villages. A spokesman for the group denied responsibility. Kalkadanya Betel reports from Addis Ababa.
Indiscriminate killings, victims young and old, houses set ablaze. This is how witnesses of Saturday's attacks in Gimbi district in Ethiopia's Oromia region described the violence. There is no confirmation of the exact number of casualties, but there are fears it could be high. Some are buried in mass graves, one witness told the BBC. But there could still be uncollected bodies in the woods.
BBC News. The UN World Food Programme has warned that it's having to reduce rations for people it supports in Africa because of a lack of adequate funding and rising needs. It says most refugees in East Africa have had their rations cut by up to 50%. In West Africa, the WFP has also significantly reduced the amount of food it provides. The war in Ukraine has driven up the price of commodities. A regional official in northern Mali says at least 20 civilians have been killed in attacks blamed on jihadist fighters. The violence on Saturday was near the city of Gao. The official told the French news agency that the situation was very worrying, with many civilians fleeing as the Islamist militants carried out atrocities. The UN says that security in the Gao and Menaka regions has deteriorated sharply. The International Swimming Federation, FINA, has voted to restrict the participation of transgender athletes in elite women's events. The new rule was approved by just over 70% of delegates who met in Budapest. Theo White reports.
The issue of transgender competitors in women's sport has long proved controversial. Opponents of transgender participation say anyone who's been through male puberty has an unfair physical advantage. Recently, the debate has intensified with the success of the American transgender swimmer Leah Thomas. Under the new FINA rules, transgender swimmers will be required to have completed their transition by the age of 12 to race as a woman.
Theo White reporting. In motor racing, Red Bull's Max Verstappen has extended his lead at the top of Formula One Drivers' Championship, having won the Canadian Grand Prix. He held off a late challenge from Ferrari's Carlos Sainz, who finished second. Lewis Hamilton finished third. It's his best result since the opening race of the season. That's the latest from BBC News.